This is the CNN of education, and we need to Brian Stelter it right out of here. After you are done sharing videos, sharing this with everybody that you know, and telling people that they need to hear this, after you are done writing all of your letters, you need to get on your knees and you need to pray that this does not pass. Hello, welcome to Outspoken Samantha. On my channel, I like to give my opinion and perspective on current events and issues that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us that are trying to raise kids in the insanity known as today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations. We are not part of the mainstream media. We don't live in the Hollywood bubble, and we are not politicians in Washington, D.C. But we do actually have to live with the consequences of the decisions being made by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If you feel like that describes you, please like this video, share this video, leave a comment below. Also, subscribe to my channel. All of these things help to grow my channel and hopefully to reach more people who value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides that I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So there is pretty much a total reform of the Texas education system happening right now. And the reason that most people probably don't know about it is because the State Board of Education called a special session at the beginning of August with 72 hours notice for people to come and speak and to give their opinion on where they are reforming what is called the TEKS program. TEKS actually stands for Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And it is being fast-tracked right now because a lot of these board members know that they will probably be voted out in January. So they are trying to push this through under our noses. At this particular hearing, lobbyists and activists were heard. Parents were waiting around until midnight, waiting to be able to speak for or against this reformation, and they were not able to do so. So now, there are a lot of people that are moving to Texas right now, getting away from their blue states, getting away from Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul and Kate Brown of Oregon, and their soft on crime policies, their drug crises, their homelessness crises, the theft and the homicide rates, their anti-business policies, where we're trying to find safer communities. We want to be governed by people that actually listen to the things that matter to us. We actually want representatives who work for us and take our concerns and our values to the Capitol building, instead of this very detached approach where the people that we have elected to office live in their mansions up on a hill and they don't actually interact with the communities that elected them to represent. So that is a huge reason as to why my family and we moved from Colorado to Texas about a year and a half ago. We wanted a place that had a better education system, better schools, more friendly to small businesses, and just an overall community of people that aligned more with our values. We just decided that Texas was a better fit for us, and we made that move. And I think a lot of times when we make these big moves, because I know there are a lot of people doing it right now, we think that if we elect a governor or a mayor that aligns with our values, that we're safe, that we don't really have to get involved with anything else or pay attention to really anything else that is going on. And as somebody that ran for state house representative in Colorado in 2020, that is what I did. I ran for State House District 1 in Denver, Colorado in 2020. And as someone who did that, I understand and I have seen more and more the importance of understanding what is happening in your community locally, in your schools, in your cities, with your local representatives, what they stand for and what they are doing. We all like to pay attention to what is happening in the White House, Joe Biden's latest gaffe, Kamala Harris's latest failed speech, Nancy Pelosi drunk at the podium. All of these things are entertaining to watch, and we can kind of watch from a distance and say, hey, that's happening in Washington, D.C. It's not affecting me here in Texas. And nothing could be further from the truth. What really matters to us, to families, to individuals, to businesses, it is what happens at a local level. So because my husband and I are both self-employed, we were able to make this move. We were able to come to Texas, and we were able to essentially handpick the school district that we wanted our kids to be in. We looked at the schools, we looked at the value of the superintendent and the school board and the people that were kind of leading this community, and we were able to say that is exactly where we want to raise our family. We had the luxury to do so. I understand not a lot of people can do that. Thankfully, we were able to do that, and we thought, we're coming to this school district. We might have a few conflicts of interest with some of the teachers. No school district is perfect, but for the most part, they're focused on education. They're focused on accurate American history. They still say the Pledge of Allegiance. They still hold those American values, and those are the things that we want in our schools. And it seems like a place like Texas, with everybody that's been moving here, a lot of people say, Texas would be a really hard state to turn blue. And when people, there are a lot of people that will say, oh, Texas is turning blue, it's, turning purple. A lot of us just laugh at it and say that could never happen. And at this point in time, it could probably be very difficult to elect a Democrat governor. I don't think Beto O'Rourke has a chance at this point in time. And nobody loves to lose more than Beto does. But while we're focusing on elections and we're focusing on what us as adults have the power to do as registered voters, we're not focusing on what really would turn a state like Texas blue. And that comes by changing the minds of our children, by eliminating ideas like freedom and liberty, to raise a generation of kids who do not understand how much hope America gives to the rest of the world, this beacon of light that shines and gives people, the idea that someday maybe they will get to live as they were truly meant to live and speak, to speak freely, the right to worship freely, the right to pursue any opportunity that they choose, uninhibited by laws or, by the restrictions of their government telling them what they can and cannot do. And there is truly no place else in the world that is like the U.S. And as somebody who grew up in Canada, who was truly under the impression that I lived in a free country, I can safely say there is no place like the U.S. Even Canada, that has made individual liberty the core foundation of its existence. And because of the way that America is structured with the federal government and with the state governments and all of these things in between, and because its core foundation is based on individual liberty and freedom, it is so difficult to crumble. But the way to do it is from the ground up, to convince America's citizens to destroy it for themselves. That is exactly what the goal of this new TEKS program is, to completely undo the things that have been mandated to teach in our elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, to teach kids about accurate American history and Texas history, and to be proud to live in this country. All of the things that would contribute to that ideology and raise a society that fights for freedom and fights for individual liberty and understands the value of the Constitution. This program, this foundation would completely undo all of that and replace it with anti-American ideas and anti-American ideology. So I came across all of this information as I was watching Jaco Booyens, that's Jaco Booyens, on YouTube. He's one of my favorite commentators to listen to, and he shed some light on this because I didn't know it was happening, and as I'm sure most of Texas families do not know that this is happening right now, and I think that this is the most important issue to focus on right now. So please go to his channel and watch his video. I will link it in the description box down below. Also go to his website, which I will also link in the description box down below, because it has all of the action steps that you can take, as well as all the descriptions of what is happening, the educational outline for each grade, what this new TEKS program would do, and it gives a really in-depth descriptive outline as to what all of this means. So I am not going to go into a lot of depth about this because he has done such a great job of doing it for us, but I wanted to add my voice in urgency when I'm talking to families and the people of this state that want to make sure that our state stays the way that it is now and continues to be this light of patriotism in America, in a country that is struggling to hold on to its identity. And I think a lot of people don't realize how urgent this is because they already understand that the public education system has become some level of indoctrination for leftist ideologies. So they don't think that it really could get any worse. But at this point, as it stands right now, we have the opportunity to opt in or out of certain programs, to have a certain level of freedom and a certain level of say that what happens in our local school districts. Whereas this reformation, sorry, I keep saying that word weirdly, this reformation would change all of that. It would be mandated for the next 12 years. There's no option to opt out. So this would be the standard across the board in Texas. And I'm just going to briefly outline some of the things that are going to be taught and replaced, some of the things that are going to be nixed and taken out, and what they're going to be replaced with in some of these education programs and in this curriculum, all the way from kindergarten to high school. As I said, Jaco outlines this so, very articulately, both in his videos and on his website. So please, I know it's an hour long, but it is so worth it. You have to know what's going on because we have a very, very short period of time to act on this and to respond to it and to make our voices heard and to put pressure on the State Board of Education to keep this from happening. So starting in kindergarten, it is planting the seed of idea that the family does not raise the child, that the community raises the child. It starts in the schools with the teachers. As they move up, it moves towards the state government and then towards the federal government. That the nuclear family is no longer the traditional use of the word family. It's no longer the traditional family unit. The community is your family. The government is your family. Teaching that the founding fathers were basically morally depraved thieves that stole land. First through second grade, teaching community values, not individual values or individual liberty. 42% of the history taught will be China's history, and it will be in a favorable light, that China is a good place, that it's a free place, that it's that China is the beacon of light in the world. And I don't know if you saw Nancy Pelosi's video recently where she said, China is one of the freest countries in the world, which is completely such a deranged thing to say. I'm not sure how many shots of tequila she had before she said that. Third through eighth grade, they're going to take out things, people like Paul Revere and Sam Adams and Abraham Lincoln and JFK and Ronald Reagan. They're not going to teach anything about capitalism. Barely any mention of World War I, or II, anything about Vietnam. No mention of Russia, Stalin, or Hitler, because we can't be teaching kids what oppression looks like and what tyranny looks like and what authoritarianism looks like. We can't be teaching what any of those things look like so that they won't recognize it when it's happening to them. Taking out American history, very, very select cherry picking about what is and is not taught. Heavy emphasis on slavery and white supremacy, starting out with the oppression and victimhood mentalities, everything under the title of intersectionality, and then blending the civil rights movement with the LGBTQ movement, kind of putting it all into one under this title of intersectionality. And I know that all sounds very jumbled and very vague. Like I said, please go to Jaco's website to get a better idea of what all of these things mean. But basically taking out anybody that has demonstrated any kind of accomplishment in the US and only focusing on America's failures and all of our bad times and making us look as bad as possible, with an emphasis on pro-China history, and China is amazing. Fourth, fifth, sixth grade, no teaching of any Texas history, and then replacing it with world religion like Islam, Buddhism, and paganism. Taking out In God We Trust and E Pluribus Unum. The history of government, economics, and geography, all taught through the lens of culture as opposed to the lens of, what factually happened. basically all taught through the lens, and how pretty much anything that has to do with America led to the oppression of different cultures, essentially. No mention of the founding documents, but instead teaching the spirit of the founding documents, which we can all interpret to mean that they were racist and oppressive and built by white rich men, and whatever interpretation of the founding documents that they want to put in. No mention of the rights we received through war. No mention of any of America's accomplishments like the moon landing. As the kids get older, it's a heavy emphasis on the LGBTQ ideology. Mandatory to study and memorize the 28 selected genders. Mandatory comprehensive sex education. Mandatory reading of Lawn Boy, Genderqueer, My Rainbow, and the Harvey Milk Story. Please look all of those up if you have never heard of them, because they are very graphic, and there have been parents that have tried to read out of these books in school board meetings and have had their microphones shut off because they are too graphic to be heard in a meeting full of adults. But they're just fine for our kids to pick up off the library, off the shelf in their school library for them to read. And all of these things will be based on the diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology. In high school, it's world geography, the gender inequality index, the world happiness report will all be resources. The globalization of everything is positive. So having like borders or having our own individual countries with their own culture and own belief system and own government is all evil and bad. And no mention of the radical Islamic movement, so as not to paint them in a negative light. So that's just kind of an overview of what all of this means. It's very, very general. Please go to Jaco's website and read all through it. The main thing is very anti-America, if America is mentioned at all. Very pro-world globalization, no borders, no individual countries, no unique cultures, anything. Mandates the teaching of Jim Crow, which I have absolutely no problem learning about. It's just that the lens and the spin that they're putting on these things is, of course, to make America look that much worse. Pro-industrialization, pro-unions. The song Over There will be taught as U.S. propaganda. And the 1619 Project will be used as the foundation for ethics studies. The repeatedly debunked 1619 Project that has been repeatedly proven to be completely false and total crap, essentially will be the basis for the foundation of ethics. So what is the result of having things like this happen and having education reform to this magnitude? Well, when you see angry protesters out on the street protesting over America being systemically racist and oppressive and yelling about Roe v. Wade and their constitutional right to an abortion, and we laugh at college students who graduate from Harvard and can't name all 50 states or don't know how many states there are at all, but they can name all 57 genders, and laughing about the failures of our education system as we see young adults who don't know anything about the Civil War and don't know how many stars and stripes there are on the American flag, or even who the President of the United States is. We laugh at all of these things and we look at these things and we roll our eyes. But those people, that is the direct result of this kind of education system, of this kind of ideology, of this kind of teaching in our classrooms, this anti-American teaching. This is how we create mobs of college students that will stand outside of a conservative speech and protest that person being there without having any idea what they stand for, who have no idea how to handle opposing views and positions, and that their way of handling it is to either burn down your business or to try and get laws passed to silence you. That we have students walking out of schools in protest of the right to bear arms because they don't know what the Second Amendment stands. Honestly believe that the right to defend ourselves is evil and it's bad. This is how we end up where we are now by ignoring the things that are happening in our schools. And this is how we end up with the people and the college students and the young adults that we have now that know nothing about America, know nothing about individual liberty and freedom, and know nothing about other countries and what true oppression looks like, who know nothing about past history and what it looks like when your government can step in and take all of your rights away from you, or create categories of people and decide who gets what rights and who doesn't, or to pit communities against each other and force us to fight each other, instead of looking at them and what they're doing to our lives, to our cities. We know that Texas has always been a very difficult target for the left, which is why they are taking this approach by starting with our children, by starting with the mindset of the youngest and most impressionable of our society, by changing their entire outlook on how they view our country, how they view their rights, how they view the government, and how they view other cultures that we know are oppressive and evil and that, violate human rights every single day in the most evil and egregious ways, by changing their mindset to view those countries favorably, that we want to be more like them. So this is why they're targeting Texas in this way. It's not through our elections, it's not through our votes, not through the free exchange of ideas where we can sit down and talk about how we want to move forward as a state and what is it truly in the best interests of our communities and of our families and of our children. They're going through our schools from the bottom at most impressionable minds up. What I want you to do is look at everything around you, everything that you have, everything that your neighbors have, that your family in this country has because of the U.S. Constitution, because of our protected God-given rights. Even the people that are struggling, because they have the same unlimited opportunity to rise up out of their struggles and to succeed and to overcome. We're not held back by status or by income or by lineage. Every child in America has the right to grow up in the same country that you grew up in, to have the same freedom that you have had. They have the right to have that same freedom. And every country in the world that has been able to look to America as a light of hope, as a beacon of hope, has the right to live in a world where that America still exists and where that hope still exists. And if these school boards and these teachers unions honestly thought that this is what families would want, that we would be in favor of our children's education looking like this and being structured in this way, if they thought that this is what we wanted, they would not be trying to push it through in a special session. They would not be trying to jam it through before they know that they are going to be voted out of their seats. This is the CNN of education, and it is literally time to Brian Stelter this thing out of the state. Because if they can do this in the state of Texas, they can do it anywhere, and they know that. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to share this video, share Jaco's videos, share his website. Like I said, all of them in the description box. Do it now, do it today. Secondly, get off social media today and you write a letter to every single person on this school board, on the state school board of education. You write a letter, you flood their emails, call them, leave voicemails. They need our influence. They need to know that we are not okay with this, that we want to maintain the previous TEKS standards that mandated Texas history and American history, pro-patriotism, pro-in God we trust, and to maintain the standard that was set in 2009. We need to put pressure on this because this all needs to happen before August 30th. The third thing that you need to do, after you are done sharing videos, sharing this with everybody that you know, and telling people that they need to hear this, after you are done writing all of your letters, you need to get on your knees and you need to pray that this does not pass, that this does not go through. You need to pray to soften the hearts of the State Board of Education And you need to ask God to help you have the influence that you can to soften their hearts and to pray that this does not happen in the state of Texas, to protect the U.S. Constitution as it was inspired by God and to maintain those standards in this great state. This is our job. These are our kids, and it is our responsibility to protect them, to protect their freedom, to protect their rights for them and for their future generations. You have your action steps. Do it today. Do it now.